okay that my characters can break down. It doesn't mean I am breaking down. But I couldn't figure out how to separate it, because generally speaking, I was being hired to be slivers of myself. Everything just feels personal, and you feel naked and completely vulnerable and humiliated.
For Tyler Perry to admit he did start a rumor that I was difficult to work with.
Perry sued for $260 million over harassment allegations. The complaint filed in Los Angeles accuses Perry of creating a, quote, coercive, sexually exploitative dynamic with actor Derek Dixon.
Gabrielle Union was never the kind of actress to burn bridges. But 13 years ago, she walked away from one of the most powerful studios in Black Hollywood and never went back. Now, after more than a decade of silence, she's finally pulling back the curtain. And what she's revealing explains everything.
Step up and question more. And it was in the questioning amongst greatness that I was like, this feels great. I feel like I did something here.
It wasn't just bad pay, it was what she saw happening to the women around her. She tried to speak up, she tried to help, but in Tyler Perry's world, and under Oprah's shadow, that kind of honesty doesn't go unpunished.
Jane contract.
I will never settle for anything less than what I want and what I deserve.
What really happened between Gabrielle Union, Tyler Perry, and Oprah Winfrey? It wasn't some dramatic explosion. It was slower, more calculated, and way more common than anyone wants to admit. Because in Hollywood, silence isn't just protection, it's currency. And Gabrielle Union stopped paying the price. The last time Gabrielle Union appeared in a Tyler Perry film was in 2012. Over a decade has passed and not a single collaboration since. No cameos, no guest roles, no surprise reunions at his billion-dollar Atlanta studio. For someone once considered part of the inner circle, Gabrielle's absence speaks volumes. And now, 13 years later, she's finally telling us why. If you stand up for nothing, you'll fall for everything. It starts, like many stories in Hollywood, with money. Or rather, how much you're not being paid. Gabrielle Union has become one of the most vocal actresses in Black Hollywood when it comes to pay disparities. And she's made it clear that silence is no longer an option. At the 2025 American Black Film Festival, during Ali's Sisterhood and Savings panel, she pulled the curtain back. Her exact words, "Your team will be like, no, that's a great number for you." And I started listening to that little phrase a little differently. What do you mean for me as compared to who, to what? Behind closed doors, a quiet movement had begun. Gabrielle, along with a trusted circle of peers, women like Regina Hall, Nia Long, and Regina King, started comparing notes. Who's making what? Who's being offered less? Who's being pushed to the side? It wasn't just about acting anymore. This was about survival, legacy, and economic justice. She recounted a now infamous moment while working on a major project. She found out that her second lead was being paid more than she was.
I put in the same hours as most men, and if not more, and I deserve to get paid the same. Equal pay, equal work, and that's how it should be.
The story was familiar enough in the community. Powerful Black women being minimized, even when they were in charge. But what Gabrielle and her circle did next changed everything. They organized, they planned, they refused roles. Each of them had walking orders, and they stuck to them, and it worked. The studio was forced to come back to the negotiating table. Number one got her rightful pay. But all of that came with a cost, especially in Tyler Perry's world, where control is king and silence is currency. Gabrielle began speaking more publicly about deal structures and pay conversations. She became the person younger actresses called when a shady contract came across their desk. She taught them how to negotiate, how to say no, how to walk away. And with every woman she empowered, she got further from Hollywood's most powerful gatekeepers, including the ones with their names on the studio. This wasn't a feud, this wasn't a drama. It was deeper than that. Gabrielle Union wasn't just walking away from Tyler Perry. She was walking away from a system that only loved her when she was quiet. Gabrielle Union didn't just step away from Tyler Perry's empire. She stepped into something far more dangerous, the unspoken blacklist that comes when you start asking the wrong questions. She wasn't alone. Across Hollywood, Black actresses were quietly being punished for knowing their worth. And Gabrielle, with her growing voice, was becoming a threat to the system. According to Gabrielle, that's when the fake support fades. When you set boundaries, when you say you won't work for scraps. When you make peace more important than popularity, suddenly you're not grateful, you're difficult. And in Tyler Perry's circle, that label sticks fast. Gabrielle wasn't the only one feeling it. The whispers became louder. Quiet firings, roles suddenly vanished. Writers let go because they asked for union benefits. Perry had done it before. The House of Pain writers gone. The Meet the Browns team replaced. In Gabrielle's world, the message was clear. Speak up, and you'll be next. And at the center of this power dynamic, billionaires like Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey, producers who preached empowerment in public, but allegedly demanded silence in private. Gabrielle Union had worked with both, and what she began to realize over time was that solidarity only seemed to matter when she was quiet. The moment she started asking questions, the support vanished. She wasn't saying Perry or Oprah were monsters. She didn't need to. The pattern said it all. They knew how the system worked, and they weren't trying to dismantle it. As the rest of Hollywood praised Perry for opening a studio and hiring black talent, Gabrielle looked around and asked, at what cost? And more importantly, who gets left behind? When Gabrielle Union spoke about pay gaps and being sidelined, she wasn't just speaking for herself, she was warning people. And by 2024, it became obvious she wasn't the only one watching the system from the inside. Because suddenly, out of nowhere, actor Christian Keys dropped a bomb.
He showed up to my apartment and offered me $100 grand to take my clothes off me. He said, I don't even need to touch you, I just want to see you.
Keys wasn't some new face. He was a respected actor, writer, and co-creator of All the Queen's Men, a Bet Plus series produced by none other than Tyler Perry Studios. But instead of dropping names directly, he let the audience connect the dots, and they did. He spoke about being targeted by a billionaire filmmaker, about secret offers, recorded conversations, and hush money that went into six figures. He said he had the tapes. He said he'd been followed. He said the person had many young black men on payroll, and he hinted heavily that the abuse wasn't just sexual, it was structural, intentional, calculated.
Sell my soul or my... Excuse my French, y'all. I know some of y'all, hopefully y'all have no kids around, but I didn't sell nothing for success.
Pointed to one name, Tyler Perry. Keys never confirmed it outright. Maybe he didn't need to, because just days after the video went viral, something else surfaced. A TikTok story by Brandon JJ, a younger actor with a completely different experience, but one that lined up all too well.
Perry comes in, everything changes. So we literally run the entire episode for him, and he hates it. Does that mean I have to learn a whole new script? Yes, that's what it means.
Jay said he had auditioned for a regular high school character, straight, bullied, simple, but on the day of the shoot, Perry allegedly changed the entire story, turning the character into a gay teen with a crush on his bully. Warning, no time to prepare, no consent. And when Jay pushed back, he was told, adapt or leave.
The actor is kind of standing on the side like, you better do it, because if not, they will fire.
Wasn't direction, that was coercion. This wasn't just about Johala Sot. This was about power. How easily it could be abused. How quickly people could be replaced if they spoke up. The kind of pressure Gabrielle Union had been talking about for years. Except now, the proof was everywhere. People started asking if Perry could do that on set. What else was happening behind closed doors? Gabrielle never commented directly on the Keys situation. She didn't have to. The entire industry was starting to catch on to what she'd been hinting at. Hollywood doesn't protect the vulnerable. It protects the powerful. And Gabrielle had just refused to play that game anymore. Gabrielle Union had spent years watching her peers get mistreated, underpaid, rewritten, discarded. But when she realized just how far the system would go to silence women who refused to stay in line, something changed in her. She didn't just distance herself from Tyler Perry. She walked away completely. For Gabrielle, the final straw wasn't some dramatic outburst. It was the constant, grinding disrespect, the subtle digs, the obvious inequality, and the coldness that came after she dared to speak up. She wasn't alone in that silence. Tiffany Haddish knew it too. At one point, she and Tyler Perry were close, publicly close. She'd hosted dinners, gone to his parties, worked the same industry circles. But when Haddish was hit with a controversial lawsuit, one that was ultimately dismissed and proven baseless, everyone disappeared, especially Tyler Perry.
Everything. All my gigs gone. Really? Everything gone.
His face, you know?
I don't know, bro.
No one from Perry's studio publicly defended her. No one offered support, despite the fact that she had already been cleared. And Gabrielle, who had been quietly observing how these powerful friends treat people when they're at their lowest, took notes. The silence was loud. The loyalty was fake, and Perry wasn't just doing this to the women he worked with. He was also burning his writers. Remember when 4 writers from House of Pain were fired for requesting union contracts? That was Perry too. And when the Writers Guild of America stepped in to accuse him of unfair labor practices, Perry didn't apologize. He didn't negotiate. Instead, he made the announcement himself. He would write every episode of every show moving forward alone. Too many that sounded like genius. To people like Gabrielle Union, it sounded like control, obsession, and maybe even fear. Fear of sharing credit, fear of being questioned, fear of having to pay people what they're worth. And it wasn't just behind the scenes. Gabrielle had been watching the way studios paid black women versus white women versus black men. She was watching actresses like Monique get punished for asking to be paid for promotional work. She was watching them get labeled difficult for demanding respect. Gabrielle wasn't surprised. She was just done, because every time she spoke up, someone would whisper, "That's a great number for you." And she realized what that really meant. It meant you should be grateful to even be here. But she wasn't going to beg for a seat anymore. She was building her own table. Tyler Perry may have been the first to disappoint Gabrielle Union, but he wasn't the only one, because right alongside him stood a woman Gabrielle once admired. A woman who built her brand on empathy, on sisterhood, on giving voice to the voiceless, Oprah Winfrey. And when Gabrielle Union started to look around for support, for advocacy, for truth, Oprah was nowhere to be found. Behind the scenes, Oprah's silence wasn't just passive, it was strategic. Gabrielle wasn't the only one who noticed. Monique, who had once been embraced by Oprah, had already sounded the alarm years earlier. According to Monique, it all began in 2009 when she starred in Precious. Despite winning an Oscar for her role, she was labeled difficult after refusing to do unpaid international press. She wasn't contractually obligated to promote the film beyond domestic commitments, and she made that clear. That's when everything changed. Behind the scenes, she says, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and Lee Daniels conspired to blackball her from the industry. Perry, in particular, is accused of lying to executives, telling them she was problematic and refusing to correct that narrative, even after admitting privately that he made it up. You admitted that, brother. How do you make that right? I'm sure you got lawyers. Have you had a conversation? Well, what happens is, when you take somebody at their word, time. We don't need to go to no lawyers. Tyler, you know what you did. Just make it right. Monique sat in industry exile for over a decade. According to her, she was making $2 to $3 million a year before the fallout. Do the math. She lost tens of millions based on a lie Perry admitted to in private, but never corrected publicly. Do you know, Shannon, that's cost my family tens of millions of dollars. But the financial loss wasn't even the deepest wound. In a moment that still haunts her, Oprah invited Monique's estranged parents onto her show after Monique had confided in her privately about their painful relationship. That, she says, was the ultimate betrayal. And when it came time to reconcile, Oprah gave a weak, indirect apology during a group panel, saying, "If I've done anything wrong, I apologize to Monique." That wasn't an apology. It was a deflection, the worst part. Tyler Perry allegedly called her into a private room during the Precious promo run, surrounded by staff. Monique brought in her own security. As soon as Perry closed the door, his entire team allegedly scattered like they were used to this kind of setup. Monique says he pressured her to do press she wasn't being paid for, dangling the promise of a $3 to $8 million future payday when she refused. Perry allegedly backed off, but later joined the campaign to smear her reputation anyway. She later revealed that even Reggie Wells, Oprah's former makeup artist, overheard Oprah say she'd never pay Monique a dime, despite knowing she deserved it. "Monique, I was there that day," Reggie said. "And when you all got off the phone, I looked at Oprah and said, why don't you just pay this woman what she deserves? And she looked at me and said, I won't be paying her nothing. And I said, that's not right. And you know it's not right." Monique doesn't want pity. What she wants is accountability. She wants Oprah and Perry to say publicly what they said privately, that they were wrong, that they lied, that they cost her millions. And if they want to make it right, they'll have to do it in the same spotlight that helped ruin her name. And yet, Perry remained silent. Oprah remained silent. And Monique, she's still speaking, because if they could do it to her, who else did they do it to? For years, Gabrielle Union had been warning us, not with rants, not with accusations, but with calm, consistent truths. The industry was broken. The powerful weren't just gatekeepers, they were silencers. Trust, control. And then in June 2025, it all exploded. Actor Derek Dixon filed a $260 million lawsuit against Tyler Perry and Tyler Perry Studios, accusing him of sexual assault, harassment, coercion, and creating a hostile work environment.